Most Americans don't know this. Eatonville, Florida, one of the first incorporated all-black towns in America, stood face-to-face with the Ku Klux Klan. This isn't just a story of intimidation. It's a story of survival. In the decades after the Civil War, the promise of emancipation often felt like a mirage. For millions of newly freed African Americans, the dream of liberty was choked by sharecropping, voter suppression, and the terror of the Klan. The failure of Reconstruction left many searching for a sanctuary, a place to not just survive, but to truly live free. In the heart of Florida, a revolutionary answer began to take root. It began with a simple yet radical act: buying land. After the war, African-American families, led by visionaries like Joseph E. Clark, pooled their resources. In 1887, they purchased over 100 acres from a white landowner, Josiah Eaton. This wasn't just a real estate transaction, it was the claiming of a destiny. On this soil, they would build a town entirely for themselves, by themselves. They named it Eatonville, one of the first all-black incorporated municipalities in the United States. From this raw Florida landscape, they built a world. They laid out streets, erected homes, and established an economy. They opened schools for their children, a post office to connect with the world, and stores for their needs. Crucially, they governed themselves. They elected their own mayor, town council, and marshal, creating a system of laws that reflected their values. They planted crops for their own families and built churches that became the heart of their social and political lives. It was into this world that a young Zora Neale Hurston was raised. For her, Eatonville wasn't an exception. It was the universe. She grew up where the mayor was her father, and every leader, business owner, and teacher was black. She was immersed in a culture that was unapologetically African American, surrounded by rich dialect and folklore. This unique upbringing, sheltered from the psychological weight of Jim Crow, gave her the unshakable confidence and perspective that would define her literary genius. Eatonville was more than a town. It was a powerful declaration. In an era of intense racial oppression, it stood as living proof that freedom, self-governance, and black prosperity were not just dreams, but achievable realities. For its residents, and for African Americans across the country, Eatonville was a beacon of hope, a testament to what was possible. But Eatonville's existence challenged white supremacy. The Ku Klux Klan spread fear across Florida, marching in hoods, intimidating African American voters and communities. Eatonville's people knew the threat, and they answered not with violence but with unity, education, and faith. The turn of the 20th century brought a new kind of war to the South, one fought not with cannons, but with contracts and coercion. Like so many black towns, Eatonville's land was under constant, relentless pressure. Its very existence was a challenge to the Jim Crow order, and its prime location in central Florida made it a target. As the neighboring white town of Maitland expanded, developers saw Eatonville not as a community, but as an obstacle, a collection of valuable parcels to be acquired by any means necessary. The pressure wasn't a single event. It was a slow, grinding campaign. It came in the form of unsolicited lowball offers, of property tax schemes designed to trip up landowners, and through the exploitation of complex legal loopholes that were deliberately stacked against African Americans. Surrounding white developers pushed to buy, annex, and carve away at its borders, employing a strategy of economic attrition. The goal was to break the town's spirit by breaking it apart, piece by piece. And yes, in the face of overwhelming financial and legal power, some African American families did lose their property to outside hands. Deeds were signed under duress, and homesteads that had been in families for a generation were lost. But Eatonville refused to vanish. This was not a passive community. Led by its founders and town elders, the people organized. They pooled their resources to help neighbors pay off debts and taxes. Every acre saved was a victory. Every property line defended was a declaration that they were not just residents but citizens with a right to their home. This is what makes Eatonville's story so remarkable. Unlike Rosewood or Ocoee, which were utterly destroyed by mob violence, Eatonville held its ground. It faced a different kind of violence, a slow, economic strangulation, and it survived. While its official boundaries may have ebbed and flowed over the decades, its people kept their core land, and with it, their identity. This wasn't just about real estate. It was about preserving the physical space where their culture could thrive, where their children could be educated without fear, and where their right to self-governance was made real. By holding on to the land, the people of Eatonville ensured that the heart of their town would continue to beat. Eatonville survived where others did not, and because it endured, its legacy reached the world. Zora Neale Hurston carried Eatonville's voice into American literature, preserving its folklore and rhythms. Today, Eatonville hosts the Zora Festival, celebrating a town that refused to be erased. Eatonville's survival is a rare and precious story in the American narrative. For every Eatonville that stands today, there are countless others that have been erased from our maps and memories. Towns like Rosewood in Florida or Oscarville in Georgia, vibrant Black communities extinguished by violence and greed. Eatonville was different. It was born not as a concession, but as a declaration of independence. A town built by and for African Americans, a sanctuary where self-governance was the law of the land. Here, Black hands laid the foundations, Black voices shaped the laws, and Black enterprise fueled the economy. This was more than a place to live. It was a place to breathe. But that freedom was relentlessly tested by the overt hate of the Klan, by the subtle poison of economic strangulation, and by the constant pressure of a world that refused to see its legitimacy. Yet, through it all, Eatonville was never destroyed. Its body was bruised, but its spirit remained unbroken. The town's endurance offers a profound lesson. It reminds us that a community's soul is not forged in brick and mortar alone, but in the intangible bonds that hold a people together. When land and lives were most threatened, Eatonville drew its strength from three sacred pillars. The first was culture. This is the soil that nourished Zora Neale Hurston, whose stories carried the town's voice to the world. That same cultural vibrancy lives on today in the rhythm of the annual Zora Festival and in the folklore passed down through generations. The second pillar was unity. In a world designed to isolate and disempower, Eatonville's residents practiced radical solidarity. They supported their own businesses, pooled their resources to protect their neighbors, and governed with a collective will. This was the essence of community, a shield forged from mutual respect and shared destiny. Finally, there was education. The Hungerford School was more than a place of learning. It was an engine of liberation. It armed its students not just with knowledge, but with practical skills, self-sufficiency, and an unshakable sense of pride in who they were and where they came from. And so, the story of Eatonville is not a closed chapter of history. It is a living testament and an urgent question for our time. The threats have changed their form, but they have not vanished. Today, the danger is not a burning cross, but the creeping sprawl of gentrification that threatens to swallow the town's identity. The risk is not legal disenfranchisement, but the slow erosion of historical memory. How then do we protect this vital piece of the American soul? The answer must be as multifaceted as the town itself. It means championing its historical preservation, not as a static museum, but as a vibrant, living community. It means investing in its local economy, supporting its cultural institutions, and amplifying its story in our classrooms and public squares. The fight to save Eatonville and the handful of towns like it is a fight to preserve the tangible proof that Black freedom and resilience have always been central to the American experiment. Their legacy is our inheritance. The question is no longer just for the residents of Eatonville, but for all of us. What will we do to ensure it endures for the next generation? If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video.